Morning, everybody. Today we're going to do ordinary level depreciation and revaluation question. I'm using 2023 exam paper, and we're just going to work through our steps and perform the T accounts that are required. Having a quick look at the question, guys. Please notice it's over 2 years. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items for 2021. We've got 2 items for 2022. So we've asked for 2 years of accounts in the question. If we go down and look for the what's required, we're asked for the buildings account for the 2 years, the provision for depreciation account for the 2 years, the disposal account, and the revaluation reserve account. So 4 accounts is what we're asked for, and we're going to go through the steps now to create those. So please make sure that you have the question open in front of you and that you have your calculator, your ruler, your biros, all your bits laid out correctly so that you can meet the time requirement to get the question done for us. So we're going to follow through the steps to perform this today. So I suppose the first piece that we want to think about is the number of accounts we need to create. So just as we said from reading the question, we're going to create 4 T accounts. The asset account, the vehicles account, we're leaving about 10 lines for that because we have to do 2 years worth. The provision for depreciation account, leaving about 10 lines for that as we have to do 2 years worth in there as well. We're creating the disposal account over here, about 5 lines for that in our T account because there's only one disposal when we read through the question, and the revaluation reserve, only about 5 lines for that because there's only one revaluation in the second year in this question. We're going to go through the steps down here for the 2 years. I want you to learn the steps. If you know the steps and follow these steps, you will not go wrong in a depreciation and revaluation question. Okay, so let's, as we do the steps, please go and learn the steps. Now I'm going to quickly talk through the EARL of each of the accounts that we're creating, just so that we know how to increase and decrease. So our first account here, guys, is our vehicles account. Vehicles are assets accounts. We own them. We're going to own them for a long time. The rule for an asset is we debit to increase it and we credit it to decrease it. So if I buy a new asset, it's going in on the debit side. If I'm selling an asset, it'll be on the credit side, making my assets smaller. Provision for depreciation accounts. They are liability accounts. Liability accounts, we credit them to increase them. So my opening balances are going to be on the credit side. When I put in extra depreciation, making it bigger, it's going to be on the credit side. When I'm making it smaller, it's going to be on the debit side. If I have a disposal or a revaluation, it'll be on the debit side, making it smaller. Disposal accounts are different. They don't have an EARL, expense, asset, revenue, or liability. They are just created to calculate if we have a profit or a loss in disposal. So they will never have a balance CD or a balance BD on them. They're just there to help us determine whether we have a profit or a loss on the sale. And we'll see that in a minute. A revaluation reserve account. So all reserves, all provision accounts, they're liability accounts. So they follow the rule for liabilities. We credit them to increase them. So the balances are going to be on the credit side. Any new revaluations are going to be on the credit side. We debit them to make them smaller. Okay, so we follow that EARL rule throughout our accounting over the next 2 years. So please be familiar with it and make sure that we use it. So we're going to follow our steps now that we're going to use for doing every one of these ordinary level questions every single time. The first step, we're going to enter our opening balances. Those opening balances are given to us in the question. On the 1st of the first 21, the buildings are 750. It's going in on the debit side because it's an asset account. We debit them to increase them. Opening balance BD, 750,000 onto the debit side. They give us the opening balance for our provision for depreciation account, 149,000 credit side because it's a liability account. Always credit. 2021 liabilities are always credit. And it's 149,000. Okay, there's no opening balance on a disposal account. And there's no opening balance on these revaluation accounts at ordinary level. So we just enter our 2 opening balances for those accounts And that's our first step done. Second step, we check every time through these steps and see if it's required. Perform a revaluation. So if we look at what happened in 2021 in our question, we did a purchase, we did a sale, and we have to enter our depreciation every year. So there's no revaluation step in our first year of this depreciation question. Okay, so no revaluation step. So we can skip that step for this year. We'll be doing it next year. Okay, so skipping that step, we're moving on to step 3. So step 3 for us is perform additions. Were there any additions? Yes, there was. On the 1st of the 6th, we purchased a building for 335,000. So when we perform an addition, you're going to debit the asset account to increase it, and we'd credit the bank because we would have paid for it out of our bank account. This is double entry. For every debit, there is a credit. We don't need to do the bank account because they didn't ask for it. As you'll remember when we read the question, they only asked for the 4 T accounts we created here. Bank wasn't one of them. So we just have to do the vehicles account. We bought a new vehicle on the 1st of the 6th. So on the 1st of the 6th, 21, we purchased it. We paid for it out of our bank account. So we're putting in our bank account as our description because it's the name of the other account for our double entry. And 335,000. It's going in on the debit side of my asset account, increasing my asset account. So we debit assets to increase them. So every purchase you ever do will go into the debit side of your asset account. Perform additions. That's all we have to do to do the additions. Okay, so that's a nice handy one. So next one in our set of steps is perform disposals. Again, in our question, guys, we don't have a disposal in 20. Oh, we do. Apologies. We do have a disposal in 2021. So we'll do our disposal now. So there's a number of steps in doing a disposal, and we're going to just step through them now. So we disposed of the asset, we sold the asset is gone. Okay, so we read the question very carefully. We sold it for 104,000. So what that means is that's what we got for it, or what we would use the word the proceeds of it. That's what we got for it. We sold the building. We got 104,000 for it. It cost us 175,000. So that is the cost of the asset, and that will be coming out of our asset account. The net book value of the building was 97,000. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little working here on this one just to figure out what was the depreciation on it. So the cost, sorry, no, I'll do it just here. The cost of our asset was 175,000. The net book value, so that's what it was worth when all of the depreciation was taken off of it, is 97,000. So that allows us to calculate what was the depreciation on that asset. So we're just going to be able to figure out from that what was all the provision for depreciation for that asset. How much had it reduced in value? So we can see that that is 78,000. So I'm taking the cost of the asset out of the asset account. I'm going to take all of the depreciation, which is that 78,000 out of the depreciation, and then I'm going to enter into the disposal account what we got for it, which we saw there in the question, and we're going to calculate the profit and loss on disposal. Okay, so let's go. So I must take the cost out of cost. So on the 1st of the 7th, I'm putting it to the disposal account. So you always put in the name of the other account. It cost 175,000. It's going into the credit side because I'm reducing my asset account, the credit side of this account, and then we're going to put it into the debit side, 1st of the 7th, 21, the debit side of the disposal account. You always give the name of the opposite account when you're doing double entry. And you always put this, the debit must equal the credit. So we credited vehicles, we're debiting disposal with the cost of the asset. So always cost. Okay, so we're going to put the asset up here, and I'm just going to put at cost. Always the cost amount that goes in there. Okay, so we've done step 1 here. We've taken the asset out of the asset account. Always at cost. Credit the asset, debit the disposal account. That's part 4, part A, done. Second part, take the depreciation out of the provision account and put it into the disposal account. So we're going to debit the provision account because it's a liability account, and you debit it to make it smaller. So on the 1st of the 7th, and we're putting in the amount of depreciation. So you do have to calculate that number, guys, like we just did. It's the difference between the cost and the net book value gives us the total depreciation of 78,000. Our double entry. It's on the debit side of the provision for depreciation account, reducing it, and therefore it must be on the credit side of the disposal account, because that's how our double entry works. Provision for depreciation, 78,000. Okay, so always in your description is the name of the other account where your double entry is. So that's our step 2 done. So we've taken the asset out of the asset at cost. We've taken all of the depreciation out of the provision account and put it to the disposal account. Part C here is you put the proceeds, what we got for the asset when we sold it, into the disposal account. So we sold it for 104,000. We sold it for 104,000. So we got 104,000 for it. Okay, so that would have gone. My double entry for that would have been a debit in my bank account, making my asset go up because the money went into my bank account, and it's going to be a credit in here. Okay, and we got, as the question says, 104,000. 104,000. So what we got for it when we sold it. Okay. So now I must go down to my disposal account. I've put in the cost, I've put in the depreciation, I've put in what I got for it, and now I just need to balance that account. Okay, so we're going to follow our steps that we already know about the steps for balancing an account. Okay. Okay. So here we're going to follow our normal steps for balancing the account. So we're going to add up both sides and decide which side is the biggest. We did this in the earlier video. Add up both sides, decide which side is the biggest. The biggest is the credit side here, 182,000. You can see that. So the credit side is the biggest, 182,000. Enter the biggest as the total on both sides. And now what we would normally be doing is a balance CD, but we're not calling it that in the disposal account because disposal accounts don't have balances on them. The missing number in a disposal account, we call it either the profit or the loss on disposal. So here we have a profit on disposal, 7,000. Okay, so that's what we do in our disposal account. There's no balance CD, no balance BD. The missing number when you do those steps, we call it a profit if it's on the debit side. We call it a loss if it's on the credit side. Profit or loss on disposal. Okay, so we're going through our steps, guys. We've entered our opening balances. There was no reval in the first year. We've done our additions where we bought the new building. We've done our disposals where we sold a building and calculated our profit and loss. And now we're on to our next step where we're going to enter the depreciation for the year. Oh yeah, we're looking at a profit and loss. Just a sec there now. Next step here, enter the depreciation for the year. So we've got step 5 here. Okay, nice easy one. We debit the expense account, depreciation expense account, which they didn't ask for, and we're going to credit our provision for depreciation account. So always there's double entry, guys. So our entry here is we're going to credit provision for depreciation account. We're going to give the name of the other account, P&L debt, P&L depreciation account. They didn't ask us first, so we don't have to do it. And we're going to check the amount. They would have given us that amount in the question. The total depreciation for the year was 58,000. 58,000. Lovely. Okay, so we've done, that's an easy entry as well. Okay, so the entering the P&L debt is a really easy one, but it's one that we tend to forget sometimes because we're not following our steps. So that's kind of an important one. Don't just go through your steps all the time in your head, and that way you won't be forgetting anything. Next thing for us, we've done everything for 2021 now. So we entered the opening balances, we did the purchase, we did the disposal, we entered the depreciation of the year. There's nothing else left for 2021. So we must balance the accounts for 2021. Okay, so we're going to do our little balancing steps there for 2021, and then we're going to hop on to 2022. Now I'm just going to remove this just to so it's not going to be confusing people. We're going to do our balancing steps. So we're going to add up both sides and decide which side is the biggest. I can clearly see that the debit side is going to be the biggest here. We're going to skip a line and draw a line and put in our totals. Okay, lovely. Pop in our total. So with your ruler, always with your ruler, skip the line, draw the line. The lines are really important, guys. The two double lines there are very important because they tell us in accounting, they show you that those numbers are not going to be used any longer when you go down through the accounts over the next years. So please take the time to do it. It is really important. The biggest side is the total on both sides. Interbalance CD above the total on the smaller side. It's the difference between the big minus the small. Okay, so the big side was 1085, the smaller side was 175. So the difference between big minus small. You pop that in there above the total on the smaller side. And what that means now is that my credit side adds up to 1085 and my debit side adds up to 1085000. Okay, so my account is balanced. So balance CD above the total on the smaller side, balance BD below the total on the opposite side. And we're ready with the date of the first day of the next year. The same amount as balance CD. So the balance BD and CD always at the same amount. So my assets on the start of 2022 are 910,000. And I'm ready to start 2022 now on the asset account. We now need to balance the liability account, the provision for depreciation account. So again, we are going to add up both sides and decide which side is the biggest. So the biggest for us here is our credit side. Liabilities, usually it will be the credit side on a liability account. So the biggest is 207,000. So the side that is the biggest is going to be the total for both sides. Our balance CD will be above the total on the smaller side, and it's going to be the difference between a big minus small, the big side minus the small side. The last day of the year, and the balance BD is below the total on the opposite side. Oops. Same amount as balance CD, always, always. Okay, so 129,000 below the total on the opposite side. The date is the first day of the next year because this is your opening balance for the beginning of the next year. Okay, so we're on 129,000, ready to start year 2. There's no balance on the disposal account, so we don't have to balance that one. And there's no revaluation happened, so there's nothing happening there, so we don't have to balance that one either. Okay, so then we are now ready. We've done 2021. We now have to do 2022. So we balance the account step 6, and then we go back to the start and repeat again all of these steps for the second year. okay, for 2022. So we're going to go back through the steps. So step 1, enter the opening balances. We don't need to do that because they're here now from us balancing the account. So our opening balances are there. We've put them in there when we balanced our accounts. Step 2, perform revaluation. Let's see, is there a revaluation? So the start of 2022, the buildings were revalued to 1.2 million. Okay, so we're going to need to do that step now. So perform the revaluation. So in a revaluation, there's two parts. The first one, we've decided now, we thought our assets were worth 910,000, but they're actually worth, they've told us in the question, they're now worth 1.2 million over here. So we need to increase the assets up to 1.2 million. So I'm going to need to put an extra 290,000 onto my asset to make sure that they add up to 1.2 million. Okay. So I'm increasing the value of my asset. So that's our first step here. So part 2A, increase the value of the asset. So you're going to debit the asset account to increase it up to 1.2 million. And then we're going to do the double entry, which puts that into a revaluation reserve. So we have to have double entry, debits and credits. Your debits must equal your credits. So revaluation reserve on the 1st of the 1st, 2022, we increase our asset by 290,000. So again, all increases happen on the debit side of the asset account. And then to complete our double entry, we're going to go down here on the 1st of the 1st, 2022, and we're going to put in the name of our asset account. Now, guys, I have made a little error on this guy. It's an actual building and not a vehicles account. So I'm going to call it buildings. And we're going to fix that there in a second. 290,000. So that's a little mistake by me now at the start of the question. This, I had called it a vehicles account and it should be a buildings account. Hopefully that won't confuse you now, but I'm sure it won't. Okay, so we're doing our reval. So increase the value of the asset, 290 on the debit side there. Credit the revaluation reserve because you're making it bigger. 290,000 down there. That's the first part done. The second part that we need to do is that we need to remove the depreciation on the buildings. So we're going to get rid of all of the depreciation on the buildings because what depreciation says is that your assets have lost value. So we had been saying that our buildings, we thought they were worth 910,000, but they had lost and been depreciated by 129,000. So we were saying it's lost value by 129,000. We got an auctioneer in, they revalued it. They said, no, your buildings have gone up in value, not down in value. So we have to get rid of this now because it's not actually accurate. Our buildings haven't lost value. So we're going to get rid of this by reducing the account. So in a liability account, you do that by putting it in the debit side. So whatever the value in my provision account, I'm taking it out of there, reducing it, putting it to the reval reserve. So I'm debiting this to make it smaller, and I'm putting the opposite, I'm putting the amount in here into the revaluation reserve to complete my double entry. 129,000. Okay, so when we do a revaluation, there's two parts. The first part is we're going to increase the value of the asset. So part 2A over here, increase the value of the asset. You debit the asset account, credit the reval account. The second part, I call it we wipe the depreciation. So you're getting rid of all that depreciation. You debit the provision account to decrease it, and you credit the revaluation reserve. And that's our reval done. So revaluation complete. Next step would be perform additions. There wasn't any additions in 2022. No additions. The next step is perform disposals. There wasn't any disposals in 2022 either, so we don't have to do that. The final step then is you're going to enter the depreciation for the year. Okay, so we've got to enter the depreciation for the year. So we're going to read what they tell us about it. Provide for depreciation at the rate of 6% of the value of your buildings. Okay, so we have to calculate the depreciation this time around. Okay, so the value of our buildings on the 1st of the 1st. So we revalued them up. Do you remember that? We revalued our buildings up. They started out at 910,000 and we added another 290 onto them. So we revalued our buildings all the ways up to 1.2 million, which they told us to do in the question. So the value of our buildings has gone up to 1.2 million, which they just told us there. And they're saying our depreciation will be 6% of that. Okay, so you're going to divide by 100 and multiply by 6 to get 6% of something. So we divide by 100 and multiply by 6, and that gets us our P&L depreciation value. Okay. So P&L depreciation value, 6% of 1.2 million. And we're going to enter our depreciation for the year. Okay, so using the last day of the year, exact same as what we did now last year, P&L dep, 72,000. That's our entry done. Okay, so we've performed all our transactions now for 2022. So we've done the reval, we've entered the depreciation, there was no additions or disposals. So now we're just going to balance the accounts and we are done. Okay, so again, going back to the steps for balancing the account, I encourage you to practice these so much, guys. It speeds you up so much when you get really good at it. And it is, the more you practice, the better you get. So we're going to decide which side is the biggest. It's the debit side on the asset account. It's almost always is. The side that is the biggest is going to be the total on both sides. 1.2 million, our new revaled amount. Balance CD will be above the total on the smaller side. 22, above the total on the smaller side. It gets the last day of the year above the total on the smaller side. Balance BD will be below the total on the opposite side, and it's the same value as balance CD always. That's that one balanced. Now we're going to do the same for this guy here. So again, please use your ruler, guys. When you're starting out in accounting, I do encourage you to skip a line and draw a line. Once you get good at it, you'll know which side is the biggest. But it's at the start, I just encourage you to do that. Liability account, we're balancing here. We more than likely the biggest will be on the credit side because liabilities always have credit balances. So add up both sides, decide which side is the biggest. The credit has 201 in it, the debit has 129 in it. The credit side is the biggest. The side that is the biggest is going to be the total on both sides, 201,000 on both sides. Balance CD will be above the total on the smaller side, and the value will be the big side minus the small side. So 201,000 minus the 129,000 is 72,000. The last day of the year. Above the total, smaller side, last day of the year. Balance BD below the total. On the opposite side, same value as balance CD. So the BD, CD values, oops, I put that in the wrong place. CD and BD, same value, 72,000 below the totals on the opposite side. Okay. Good use of rulers, guys. Single line for where you're doing your adding, a double line under your totals always. It is expected in accounting. Okay. And we are done. We can balance this guy as well. Just for practice, we'll balance this guy as well. A revaluation. Okay, so I'm just popping in my lines. Add up both sides, decide which side is the biggest. The credit is the biggest in this one. It's a liability account. That's what we would normally expect. 99% of the time, that is the case. The side that is the biggest is the total on both sides. Balance CD above the total on the smaller side. The value is big minus small. There was 0 on the small side here, so it's 419,000 minus 0. Balance BD below the total, same amount as balance CD. Okay, so we're done and dusted now, people, right? So what we've done, we've met all the criteria for the question. They've asked us for the buildings account for 2 years, 15 marks. Okay, so this is our year 1. That was our first year. We had an opening balance, we bought something new, we sold something, we balanced our account. This was your year 2. We had an opening balance, we did a reval, and that was all that happened there. We didn't buy or sell anything. Okay, so we've got our full 15 marks for doing that. Second one, provision for depreciation account, 20 marks. Okay, so the first year, again, is here. We started with our opening balance on the credit side. We did our disposal, reducing the value. We added in our depreciation for the year and we balanced our account. Lovely. Our second year is here. We started with our opening balance. We did our revaluation, getting rid of that depreciation. We put in our P&L depreciation for the year. We balanced our account. 20 marks. Very nice. Thank you very much. Then down to the disposal account, 15 marks for the disposal account. The disposal was in the first year in 2021. We took the asset out of the asset account, put it in there, took out all of the depreciation, 78,000, and put it in here. We found out the proceeds of the sale, what we got first, the 104,000, and we put it in here. Then we calculated our missing number, which was our profit here, the 7,000. We made a profit on disposal on the debit side here of 7,000. We would have gotten 15 marks for doing that. And then our revaluation reserve down the end happened in the second year. This was the increase in the cost of the asset, the 290,000, and this is us getting rid of all of the depreciation, the 129,000, us taking it out of the provision account up there and putting it in here. And then we balanced our accounts. Okay, so questions are very similar, very repetitive. Follow the steps to the right, guys. Create your 4T accounts, 10 lines for the asset account, 10 lines for the provision for depreciation account, 5 lines for the disposal, 5 lines for the reval. Be sure and learn your steps below. Enter opening balances, perform your reval, perform additions, perform disposals, into the depreciation for the year, balance the accounts, do it again for the second year. Not all steps will be in each year, okay? But if you follow this, you won't miss anything. Okay, when you're doing the reval, increase the value of the asset, wipe the depreciation. Perform additions, very straightforward. Increase the asset. They don't ask us for the bank account for the second half of that double entry, so perform additions is very straightforward. Perform disposals, couple of steps in it. Take the asset out of the asset, take all the depreciation out of the depreciation account, put them into the disposal account, put into the disposal account what you got for it when you sold it, the proceeds of the sale, calculate the profit or loss and disposal. There is no balance on a disposal account. The missing number will be called either profit or loss. Step 5, people forget it all the time. Enter the depreciation for the year. So by remembering that you have to follow your steps, you won't forget it. It's a very easy one, but people do forget it because they're so caught up in doing the revaluation or the disposal that they forget this easy bit. Okay, into your depreciation for the year goes in on the credit side. That's us doing it there in year 1, and that's us doing it there in year 2. Goes into the credit side of the depreciation account every single time. Very easy. All right, so best of luck with that, guys. Hope you find this useful. Practice, practice, practice. Have your ruler, your calculator, set up your station, work through it nice and quick. The more you practice, the faster you get, and you'll get really confident. But learn your preparation steps, learn your execution steps, get fast at your balancing, know the EARL, that your assets are increasing on the debit side, your liabilities are increasing on the credit side, and you will absolutely fly it. Best of luck and well done.